How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.
Clinical, commanding and comprehensive from South Africa, as they not only book their passage into the semi-finals of the Champions Trophy, but they do so as Group B winners. A clinical performance in Karachi. They beat England inside 70 overs all told, a 7-wicket win, which also brings an end to what was quite a dispirited campaign for England at the Champions Trophy. We look back at what was the last game in Group B on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Match Day, where we're in the continued company of Anil Kumble and Nick Knight. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. One final time this Saturday. Nick, Anil, whoever wants to go first. South Africa did know that they have a flight to catch to Dubai irrespective of results. And quite clearly in the second half of that innings, they were in a hurry to catch it.
Absolutely. I think they just wanted to finish this in 20 overs and then get going. And that's exactly how South Africa sort of bossed this game. I mean, like you said, in 70 overs to take away England. Uh, I mean, it was really really impressive in the way South Africa went about their game, and to see Klaasen in that kind of form, and of course ably supported by Van der Dusen. I think South Africa will be pretty pleased going into the semi-final with a fit and firing Klaasen.
Yeah, let's take that up straight up, because South Africa, the bowling, we spoke about how good they were in the first half. Heinrich Klaasen felt like that one check they were waiting for, whether he's fit, whether he's firing. And Nick, to have Klaasen batting this way, it's a serious message to the rest of the field in the knockout rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Final piece in the jigsaw, I think, for them going into that semi-final. But I was asked, I'm sure Daniel was asked too, we were all asked before the tournament started to name our players of the tournament. I mentioned my player of the tournament, Heinrich Klaasen. Now, clearly he hasn't played in a couple of games, the washout, and didn't play in the first game, so he hasn't had a chance to make a significant impact. But I think he's just given us all a snapshot or a reminder, actually, of what talent he's got, what ability he's got against pace and spin. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe this is too big a. I think so. I mean, I wouldn't think there are too many better players of spin in the world game at the moment. That is for sure. I mean, his record is excellent. I love the way he plays. But he's very, very, very good against pace as well. Markram not being able to take place in the side, in the batting today, might have just helped Clark. I don't know if he was going to bat four regardless, or whether Markram was four, but that's kind of worked out. The game was going on, and I was thinking, well, Klaasen with a minimal target to chase, if I was South Africa, I'd put Klaasen up anyway, purely for that reason, to give him some time in the middle.
Yeah, eventually worked out well for South Africa that they lost those 2 wickets early enough for Klaasen to come in with still a fair few runs to get. Anil, why don't you pick up on that point Nick raises? We've discussed this quite often in T20s about just how good Klaasen is in facing spin. When you consider him overall as a white ball package, among the best batters against spin?
Oh, yes. Today he showed the quality not just against spin. Yes, he's absolutely devastating against spin because he plays so late. He just hangs in his crease and doesn't commit to any ball, especially to the spinners. And since he bats in his stall, he has the power and he waits on the back foot. And anything slightly short, he takes it on, and then it's a six generally. And as a spinner, you tend to sort of feel that it's a bit short, but in fact, it's actually a good length that he picks up. And then when you think that you need to go fuller, it then plays into his hands because you're too full. And then he just hits it wherever he wants. But today, I thought against Jofra Archer, he was excellent. I mean, those slow deliveries off the back foot, just punching it, and then he bowled a quick short one, pulled him through mid wicket, and the next one through point. I mean, it was class, really, of Andre Klaasen. The way he bats and the way he sort of sets himself up. He doesn't commit to any shot when the ball is being bowled. He just waits for it and then takes him on. And any time that he hits the bat, it just pings off the bat. The timing and the power that he has is superlative.
Right, so that was Heinrich Klaasen making his way back with yet another big score. He's in fact got 550s the last 5 times he's batted in ODIs, all since December. That partnership provided quite the contrast because, Nick, when you consider Klaasen, he's obviously reputed world over for what he does in T20s, doesn't get to play that much ODI cricket, but obviously that translates. And in Rassie van der Dussen, you have more of an old school ODI batter, someone who is an accumulator, but who's shown in both games he can raise his levers as well.
Yeah, and that'll be the challenge for Rassie van der Dussen. A target of, say, 380 or might come later in the tournament. Have to adapt. On the way he managed the match situation, that's all you can do as a player. It's like a glorified net session, really, for him, because he wanted to be there. At the end. That's what you want from your batters, your leading batters. Shake hands with the opponent as you walk off. Exactly everything right. When you look at batting units, Van der Dussen, you look at Markram, you look at Klaasen, you look at Miller to come, you look at what they've got options at the top. When you're picking a side now for ODI cricket, the levels are just going up and up and up. That side will have to chase 350. When you pick your batting unit, it has to be able to chase 350 plus now. And I think that side can do it. Rassie van der Dussen will have to just adjust his game. And the other point I think I want to make here is when I look at that, you mentioned Rassie van der Dussen and Heinrich Klaasen. I think they are the side, the nation that's benefited most from the IPL. And what I mean by that is they're played quite a bit now over the years. You can go back to Miller, Klaasen, a little bit, Markram's another one. I think their games against spin have evolved quite dramatically over the last 5-6 years because of their involvement in the IPL, because of that experience. They found the method, they found a game plan. And they used to be, you're probably going back 10 years here, but they used to be suffocated a little bit when spin came on. They weren't quite taking strike. Now I think they have a game plan that can play very well in subcontinent.
Anil, is that a view you would share with Nick? We do see a lot more South Africans in the IPL, as Nick brings up, than, say, towards the start of the competition 18 years ago. Has the amount of spin they get to face in these parts of the world been a big contributor to how well they play against spin?
Yeah, I think you can say that because there's a lot more South Africans in the IPL. They get to play spin regularly at practice whilst they're here for the IPL and also in matches. And then, of course, getting used to the subcontinental conditions. But I think overall, their game sort of skill sets is I think very superior. If you look at Rassie van der Dussen, Klaasen, Markram, I mean these three. If you just take these three, Miller is very different as a left hand. Of course, he's upped his game against spin, particularly in the last couple of years. But these three batters, the three right-handers in that middle order, I think they can play really well against spin. They move the feet, they step out, they use the feet inside the crease. So I think that's the beauty about these three batters. And to me, it's not just about power hitting, which Klaasen has. He takes singles at will. I mean, you can't bowl a dot ball at Klaasen. And that's what we saw today. It was like how Nick mentioned, Van der Dussen was having a net session, but I thought Klaasen was just having a net without thinking about who the bowler was, and that's how easy it looked.
Nick, not a lot that can be asked with the bowling effort. They only had 180 in front of them. Jofra Archer did bowl his 9 overs. He did look sharp with the new ball, which he did in the previous game against Afghanistan as well. Want your assessment on what you've seen of Archer in these 3 games and where you feel improvements may or may not be needed.
The point about Archer's right. He's looked fit and strong. I mean, clearly England rely pretty heavily on his involvement, certainly with the new ball, and as probably as he gets to have another go in those middle. But I've spoken a lot. Stick by it. I really feel that is often where games are lost. Obviously, sides want to knock back an opposition early, as he's done on a couple of individually. But that to me, when I look at bowling units, I feel this side one pace. I've said on many occasions. I don't think there are enough options. They're not 5 genuine bowling. I think it's just exposing. And when you tick over to that sort of 20, 25 over, not this game, because the game is over by the first half of the game. But have you got that ability to knock a side back? I think India have, I think New Zealand have, I think South Africa have. I think they're the top 3 bowling units who do exactly that on a fairly regular basis. England have got to look at that as something that hasn't quite worked out for them. Go back to the glory days, Liam Plunkett. Talk about a lot about the other players. He had a pretty incisive role in those middle overs and breaking open partnerships. So Rashid will continue to do it for a little while longer. But that is an area where England have been a little bit exposed.
Yeah, that is a player and a role that England have missed so much. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I was reading somewhere that the wickets that Liam Plunkett had between 2015 to 2019 in the middle overs, you count all English pacers after the 2019 World Cup, and they barely add up to his tally from the 4 years leading into 2019. So let's see how that works for England. But while we're talking bowling, it's worth going back to where we left off at halftime, because South Africa, with what was such a professional bowling display, Nick Knight, Anil Kumble both had weighed in with their thoughts on the individuals, with Janssen and Mulder taking 3 furs and Keshav Maharaj chipping in. Let me bring back the question to you, gentlemen. South Africa, are they the most complete bowling attack at this Champions Trophy? Anil, you first.
Yeah, I think in these conditions, yes, certainly in Pakistan, but they may have to bring in Shamsi when they get to Dubai. It depends whether they're going to play India, or they'll probably have to wait for the final in case India goes there. So it's a bit of a wait until they get to Dubai, but certainly they have the ability. They have. I think one good thing about South Africa is, all 3 fast bowlers that were today. Yes, of course, Mulder is the one who sort of bowls in that middle period. But if you look at the 3 tall fast bowlers, all of them are really tall, and all of them are different. Angles are very different. Rabada is very classical, whereas Ngidi is pretty awkward to face, I'm sure, with his action. And Marco Janssen, comes at such height. So all 3 are very different, and that's the nature that you want in a one day. That's the variation, even on a flat track. It's not easy for the batters to line up because all 3 are very different, and that's something that I think South Africa can certainly feel that they have this kind of a quality and also the variety going into the business end of this tournament.
All right, so I'll put you in the selector spot, Anil. Let's say if South Africa were to play India in a semi-final or the final in Dubai, and you feel the need to have Shamsi in the 11, who is the bowler who sits out?
Yeah, but I don't think South Africa will look to do that. I mean, against India, if they have to play, they may look to play just the same team because the middle overs, the faster bowlers may still get some grip because Mulder is someone who uses that lack of pace and changes his pace and he bowls wicket to wicket. So I don't think South Africa will go the Shamsi route. But if at all they want to go the Shamsi route, then maybe a Ngidi may miss out.
Nick, you brought up India, New Zealand, South Africa as the 3 best bowling units of this competition. If you were to rank them based on what we've seen so far, what would that look like?
I mean, it a little bit depends on where they're playing. I mean, India 3 and 2, aren't they? They got 3 seamers with Pandya and 2 spinners. Well, 3 spin options, but they've got plenty of spin options. So in Dubai, I think that worked pretty well. Again, New Zealand, they like to use their spin options as well. They've got 3 pacers and they've got Braithwaite, Santner, Phillips. So they've got 2 genuinely good spin options. So those 2 sides are going not so much 4 and 1. I'm with Anil. I quite like the overall squad depth of South Africa because they go one spinner in Maharaj, but they can, depending on the conditions and depending if they play in Dubai. So I think overall they're pretty well balanced. I mean, in India, by the way, I think their squad is unbalanced, but I think as long as they've not got major issues with injuries and absentees, then their side will be pretty well balanced. I'm pretty surprised Jaiswal wasn't in that shape up. But I think they're pretty well balanced as a side, even though they're pretty unbalanced, I think, as a squad. But if I'm going to give you one, I'm probably going to stick with South Africa, actually, for the reasons I've just given. I think they're adapted. They play in Dubai or Pakistan pretty well.
All right, so humor me for a minute, both of you, because South Africa have to fly out to Dubai tonight itself, and then they have to wait, along with Australia, to find out whether they are playing India in the semi-final, which will be on Tuesday, or one of those teams will join New Zealand on the flight to Lahore for the second semi-final on Wednesday. If you're South Africa, what do you rather want right now? Anil?
Yeah, I think you would rather want to stay back in Pakistan and then play whoever comes there. Yeah, New Zealand comes there. So I think that's something that perhaps South Africa would want. I mean, you wouldn't want to travel to Dubai and then come back to Pakistan, depending on the result of tomorrow.
Yes, so as far as the logistics of this tournament go, and it is a challenge, of course, for the organizers, it is such that both Australia and South Africa will find themselves in Dubai on Sunday and then await the result of that match and then figure which of those two teams joins New Zealand on the flight on its way to Lahore. Nick, what are South Africa preferring?
They're going to get some shopping done, I think, aren't they? They're going to get some going there just to fill up the bags and bring them back home. I would want to avoid, regardless of all the travel, regardless of upheaval and what it takes. I think I would want to avoid the final. So, yeah, if it means getting out there and coming back, then it's out there and coming back.
All right. We're almost ready to wrap things up, which would also mean wrapping proceedings for Nick Knight. It's been such a pleasure having you on board, Nick. There's so much of the dissection around England. If you're wondering why we're not talking about it, well, because we've had a lot of time to talk about it. So check out the SPN Cricket Info mobile app, go to our social pages, and you'll find a lot of content from these gentlemen having dissected England's problems and where they stand and where they could go. But Nick, before we do let you go, I want you to continue making one last prediction. How do you see the rest of this Champions Trophy panning out? Who are your finalists? Who's winning?
Oh, got asked that before the tournament started. I was slightly patriotic when I gave my 4 semi-finals. I put England in there, probably just sort of dreaming and being fairly hopeful. So I didn't have Australia. I had India, New Zealand, South Africa, and Australia. And England. Australia are obviously. Geez, I mean, I think India are the strongest side, if I'm truthful. I think India are going to be the hardest side to beat. I really enjoy South Africa. Geez, I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know which way it's going to go. I think the best 2 sides probably are South Africa and India. Probably India to win.
So another India-South Africa final with another defeat for South Africa, another win for India. I wonder how you're hedging your bets. The South Africans aren't liking you much for adding to their heartbreak, but the Indians, well, won't they be further fans of you, Nick Knight? But all jokes aside, thank you so much, Nick. It's been a pleasure having your company with us through this Champions Trophy. Hope to see you soon. Hope to see happier fortunes for the England side. You cover for us when they come around for the T20 World Cup next year. And Anil, we will have your company for India versus New Zealand and for the business end as well. Thank you for your time through the day. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That does it from us.
We
are done with Group B. South Africa have topped Group B. Australia are second, which means South Africa, Australia, India, New Zealand. That's the same semi-final lineup as the 2023 ODI World Cup. Now, depending on which part of the world you're in, do your thing. You're hoping for some things to not happen. If you're from India, you're hoping for some things to happen. If you are from Australia, let's see which way it pans out. India versus New Zealand is where the group stage closes. We'll be back here a little before toss time with the build-up to that last game. Be sure to join us then on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket Info Match Day.
How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.